Hello, my name is Nathan Jordan. I'm 23 years old. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania. I currently own over 40 exotic animals, and most of those are highly venomous. I live in Pennsylvania my whole life, and thankfully Pennsylvania is extremely lax on the laws for owning venomous animals. Many states are extremely strict, and you cannot own 90% of what I have outside of this state. Of the venomous that I have an Indo-Chinese spitting cobra, a wrinkle spitting cobra, and several arboreal vipers such as blue and Solaris. I also have non-venomous such as southern white-lipped pythons and emerald tree boas. I do keep invertebrates as well. I have a southern black widow, a few other tarantula species. Then I also have a few common species such as a crested gecko and a leopard gecko. Ever since I was younger, I was always obsessed with reptiles. I was always outside flipping rocks or flipping logs looking for animals, primarily snakes because that's what my main interest is. When I was inside, I'd be watching Animal Planet. I didn't really watch regular cartoons as a child. I was obsessed with watching Steve Irwin and all of his adventures that he got to do. I always knew I wanted to continue with animals when I was younger into my career as an adult. I didn't know specifically what I would end up doing, but I did know that I would eventually start keeping privately and focusing mainly on venomous snakes. I started keeping venomous animals in October 2019. I started with an eyelash viper because it was a smaller arboreal viper and it would allow me to understand the fact that it is venomous and it can kill me. These animals are misrepresented, and that's what I primarily focus on trying to educate people on, is why they're so important to us and the benefits of keeping them alive instead of people being scared of them. When working with snakes, you primarily need snake hooks, forceps, a tube set, and a clear state of mind. Clear state of mind is the most important because if an accident is going to happen, it is going to be when you're distracted, especially working with venomous snakes because that could be your last. There are various sizes of hooks depending on who makes it and where you get it from. You can get hooks ranging from 12 inches long to 48 inches long. You should always choose the appropriate size length hook for the snake that you're working with. Never base it off a species, base it off the individual itself. The same goes for the forceps for when you're feeding or grabbing stuff in the enclosure. A tube set allows you to help restrain the animal without having to pin it behind the head because God forbid it actually slips and a fang gets you and it's venomous, then you are not going to have a fun time. My enclosures are constructed from PVC aside from a few glass enclosures and tubs. PVC became extremely difficult to find and very expensive when Corona happened, so I'm still at a standstill of finishing my reptile room, but hopefully I'll be able to get more soon. An enclosure should be built to allow the snake to stretch out the length of at least the two sides and the front, as well as the height and the depth depends on if the animal is terrestrial or arboreal. PVC is a really good material because it allows you to maintain a proper temperature gradient that is specific to every species. So all of my enclosures are heated individually and their humidity is controlled individually. Cleaning typically consists of removing any fecal matter or waste that's in the enclosure, cleaning the water bowls out, so we'll spray them down with disinfectant and we'll scrub them with hot water and Dawn dish soap. It's important to use only blue Dawn dish soap. I add fresh water at least once a week, primarily 2 times a week or more often depending on the animal itself. The disinfectants that I use are chlorhexidine and F10. These are both veterinary grade disinfectants and are commonly used in surgical suites. They're extremely strong. They have to be diluted properly before use or you could injure the animal. In captivity, I feed my animals all mice, rats, or chicks, depending on the species itself. Most of my animals do take frozen thawed animals, but a few do take live. When feeding live, you should always supervise. If a snake gets bitten, you want to be able to intervene, and that goes for both non-venomous and venomous. If a bite were to get infected, you're going to then have to learn how to give injections of antibiotics to prevent the snake from becoming ill or dying. When you want to choose a food item for an animal, it should be slightly bigger than the thickest part of the snake. And you'll want to feed anywhere between 7 days to some of my snakes eat upwards of every 4 weeks. And I also weigh every single food item that I give to a snake, and I will document it in a detailed Excel sheet so I can maintain the proper feeding record as well as the snake's body weight as I measure that over time. As I mentioned before, clear state of mind is going to be your most important tool when you're handling snakes, primarily with the venomous snakes. With the non-venomous snakes, I mostly use just my hands. Unless it is aggressive, then I will use a hook to try and maneuver it and keep its head away from me. With the venomous snakes, there's two ways you can handle them. You can either double hook, so you use two hooks, one in each hand, or you can hook and tail. If you hook and tail, that's where you have the hook upper 1/3 portion of the body, and then your hand is on the tail, controlling the animal as much as you can. This is dangerous because anytime you touch a snake, you are within strike range. So when working with snakes, reading snake behavior is something that is extremely important to make sure you have a full comprehension of. It takes a long time to learn, and it also takes time to learn every individual that you work with. Vipers are different from elapids, and both of those are different from colubrids. Every snake is going to have its own defense mechanism that it will most of the time give you a warning sign. Vipers like to cock back and they shoot off like a spring-loaded gun. Elapids will kind of just charge you, or they'll turn. They won't chase you. And colubrids, it all depends on the species. Several of them will just kind of turn and bite you. I've been bitten numerous times by non-venomous, but that's because I don't treat them as seriously as the venomous. I've never been bitten by a venomous snake. I am in the process of obtaining my BBIND, which allows me to eventually import anti-venom from different countries. Once I have this, it's going to always be on hand for me in case I am to be bitten. That way I don't have to rely on a local zoo or other hospitals that could be hours away to get something that's going to be necessary to save my life. Overall, snakes are extremely important for two things: modern medicine and the biodiversity of the ecosystem. For modern medicine, several species are used for research. You could take copperheads, their venom is used for breast cancer research. And you can also think a species from South America called a Bothrops jararaca. Without that snake, we would not have hypertensive medication. For the ecosystem, snakes eat rodents and rodents carry ticks. Snakes are actually one of the most common tick destroyers in an ecosystem. We live in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is the highest rate of Lyme in the country. So without snakes, it would be even worse. One of the biggest issues that private keepers, zoos, and aquariums are facing currently are uneducated lawmakers trying to push for laws that are banning these animals. If these animals do get banned, that means that we're not going to be able to study them and have the advancements in modern medicine that we're seeing today. We can look at Florida. It is extremely difficult to own venomous snakes there, and there's an act called the Lacey Act that bans most large constrictors. If lawmakers do get to pass these animals, that means a lot of animals are going to be destroyed unnecessarily, and a lot of people's livelihoods are going to be destroyed. This started as a big hobby for me. I did not think that I was going to turn it into a career with breeding and my photography of the animals. I currently have over $40,000 invested into these snakes. And if Pennsylvania were to ever come close to banning venomous snakes, that means $40,000 is just going to be wasted because the animals don't get to get sold. They have to be terminated. So in conclusion with all of this, I really hope that when you guys see snakes in the future, you see them with a different eye. Whether it's outside in the wild or if it's at a zoo, I hope you see that the benefits that we actually get from them outweighs the irrational fears that most people have of them. If you do see them outside, just casually go around them. They're not out to get you. It is very unlikely that you're going to be bitten unless you try to grab it or step on it or anything like that. If you leave it alone, it's going to leave you alone.